Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining our webinar today. I'm Jamie Healy, Senior Grant Writer of Foundation Partnerships for Best Friends Animal Society, and I'm here today with my colleague, Erin Robinson, Manager of the Operations Team for Corporate and Foundation Relations. Erin and I have worked together on the grants team at Best Friends for a while, and we're both super fans of keeping organized and having refined processes. So today's topic is near and dear to us as A-types. In the past few grant webinars, we've talked about the importance of stewardship as it pertains to deepening relationships with our grant makers, as well as the best ways to research foundations to ensure that they're a strong fit for your organization. Today, we're going to talk about what it means to be a grant-ready organization. That is, not just an organization in need of grant funding, but one that is prepared to submit successful proposals, as well as fulfill the requirements of the grant once it's awarded. We hope that this topic will help you take a closer look at whether grants are the right solution for you, and if so, how to develop a grants culture within your organization so that you'll be ready to win grant awards again and again. Just a quick note before we dive in, you can replay this webinar as many times as you like, and there's a handout attached below the video. The handout also includes a copy of the presentation slides. You won't need the handout to follow along, but be sure to download it as a resource for your organization. If you have any questions about the content in this webinar or the handout, please post your questions in the digital community directly below this video. First up, we're going to discuss what it means to be a grant-ready organization. Quite often, when I ask people if they think their organization is grant-ready, the immediate response is something along the lines of course we're ready, we need the money. But the reality is that being grant-ready has nothing to do with your organization's need for funds. Grants come with strings attached, and while we can forge foundation partnerships that will support our programs and operations for years to come, we have to be sure that we're prepared for all that is required of the relationship, because it's very different from individual donations. Being grant ready means that your organization is prepared to pursue and apply for grant opportunities, as well as manage them when they're received. It means that the organization has all of its records, registrations, and audits completed. They have processes and procedures in place internally to properly manage the life cycle of the grant. And there's a strong level of support from leadership, policymakers, and stakeholders to pursue and comply with grants in an ethical manner. Being grant ready also means that you'll be viewed as competitive when you're going up against all of the other grant organizations that are seeking grant funding. Your good reputation, stable finances, community impact, and track record of measurable outcomes will all work to your advantage when you're forging those partnerships. Having the capacity and skills to put together a strong proposal is only a small part of the gig. Leadership must ensure that the organization is committed to seeking and managing grants in a way that is highly ethical, aligns with strategy, and complies with legal, financial, and program management standards. Navigating the full grant cycle from start to finish requires internal support, as well as having your ducks in a row from a process and strategic standpoint. Before you ever even sit down to begin researching foundations and grant opportunities, you'll want to do an organizational self-assessment to take a look at some of the following: your organization's nonprofit status, financial audits, and filings. Is everything up to date and organized? Do you have a copy of your tax determination letter, your recent tax filings and audits? A well-defined mission, vision, and strategy. Is your organization's mission and vision clear and concise? Do you have a recent strategic plan that identifies your goals that can help guide you in prioritizing funding needs? Your pursuit of all foundations and grants should strongly align with the mission and focus of your organization. You want to be careful not to chase the money and shapeshift your goals in the process of doing so. So it's good practice to only pursue grant opportunities for the work that your organization is committed to, regardless of whether grant funding is received or not. Systems, processes, and procedures. Are your bookkeeping systems set up so that you can accurately track grant funds and keep them separate from other funds? Is there a system of financial and program administration that demonstrates the ability to carry out grant programs successfully? You'll want to develop an organizational-wide policy to steer grant opportunities, assign functions, promote efficiency, and foster accountability in carrying out the pre- and post-award grant functions. The organization should have complete and current operational procedures. Some examples include adoption and foster policies, euthanasia protocol, spay-neuter procedures, intake and assessment standards. Supportive leadership and decision-making. The grants culture of an organization comes from the top down. Your board and leadership team should be fully supportive and committed to doing what it takes to ensure that grants are managed to the highest ethical standards, which includes providing focus and guidance, adequate qualified staffing, financial management, program management, quality control, and the space to deliver the activities the grant would fund. Does your organization have a diversified operating budget? What about program descriptions and program budgets? And you'll also need a structure for tracking and evaluation. The system for monitoring and evaluating programs should include being able to detect and correct problems. The time to inform a foundation partner that your program might be in crisis mode and you might not be able to deliver what you promised is not on the final report. So remember to communicate both internally and with your foundation partners regularly. Grant management capacity. Partaking in grants is so much more than submitting a proposal and accepting a check. The organization needs grant managers and staff who are adequately trained to carry out the responsibilities as grant researchers, proposal writers, grant accountants, auditors, program managers, program analysts, relationship managers, and grant administrators. Collaboration, communication, teamwork, and commitment. These are really important, and if you have these things, the rest can easily fall into place. And lastly, supportive documentation. Before you sit down to write your first proposal, it's important to note that there are a lot of frequently requested items that foundations are going to expect as a part of your submission package. The wrong time to try to pull all this information together is on the day of a deadline. Trust me, I have been there. So make sure that you have plenty of time to get with your leadership team to discuss these needs and how you can best go about obtaining them. If your organization hasn't submitted grant proposals before or is somewhat new to the process, chances are you won't have a lot of this information documented or formatted in the ways that you'll need. So take the time to prepare in advance of even committing yourself to that first grant deadline. Putting together a library of frequently used information now will help you stay organized for future needs. You may have to do some impromptu interviewing to get the information from those who have it, and then take your notes and develop the supportive documents. We've included a list of frequently requested documents as a handout to this webinar, so be sure to check out the attachment link listed below the video. Now I'm going to hand it over to Erin Robinson, who's going to talk to you about the grants team and developing a grants policy for your organization.
Thanks, Jamie. I want to start off by building off of a point you just made, that you may have to do some impromptu interviewing to get the information from those who have it. Building a grants culture and having a productive, effective team starts with having clear and open communication between all those involved. Good communication is crucial. Having clear communication channels in place from the beginning leads to improved coordination of all the information needed to implement and successfully close out a grant. Open communication facilitates cooperation with all business areas involved in grants administration. And finally, communication is definitely key to maintaining consistency in your proposals, program work, evaluations, and reports. And consistency is what will ultimately help build your organization's history of being not only grant ready, but grant worthy, meaning being able to deliver on time, within budget, and within rules and regulations. In order to build a grants team, you need to know who your contacts are. This is going to be different for every organization. In general, you want to be able to answer these three questions. Who participates in the grants processes? Do they understand their roles? And does the organization view those involved as a team? And this last question is the piece around building a grant culture within your organization. Members of your grant team need to include individuals within several different rings or levels of support. And yes, this includes the grant writers, but also includes those individuals in your organization Jamie referenced earlier who are or maybe fulfill the job role of accountants, auditors, program managers, program analysts, relationship managers, and more. My recommendation is to make it your goal while building a grants team that everyone remembers you and the grant experience in a positive light. Help them be supported in their understanding of the grant process, and you will find the next time you need assistance, the cooperation and coordination we talked about earlier will already be there. Now, for the grant fulfillment or post-award management, you want to be sure that you have systems in place to take these next steps prior to finding out you have won an award. Know who must do what action for each of these tasks. Who will accept the award by signing any agreements, and who will thank the donor? Whose job is it to review the paperwork and documentation? And what does a thorough review entail? Who will share information with the full team and how? Remember, we want to maintain that good communication. How will your organization implement the program or services the grant is funding? Who will manage the program and budget, ensuring this is completed throughout the award period and not just at report deadlines? What are the systems you will use to interact with your internal and external collaborators, the community, and the funder? How will continuous evaluation of program inputs, outputs, and outcomes occur? When and how does reporting need to be completed? And finally, what is the process to close out the grant fund through your organization's proper finance and accounting channels to ensure for audit protection? Once you can answer these questions and you have your team and documentation in order, you can be confident that your organization is grant ready. And that is the end of today's video topic. If you have any questions about the information from this video or the attached handout, please be sure to join us in the digital community and interact on the video post. Let us know what you found most helpful and would be interested in hearing about in the future. Thank you all for watching, and stay tuned for our upcoming webinar on cultivation.